Everybody, fantastic to be back. It was a lot of Siyata Dishmaya. I was due to be away this week, and Baruch Hashem, I'm here this week. So maybe we'll talk about that, okay? But the Lunch and Learn is sponsored Le'ilu Nishmat Yaakov Bar Chola Amselem. Hashem should bless the sponsors. Nachalais today. Thank you so much. It should be a serious Ilui Neshama Bezrat Hashem, His Neshama in Shamayim, and may we all be zocheh to always bring good things into this world. Bezrat Hashem, we should be celebrating together. Amazing that we come together to learn all the time, Baruch Hashem. And so much to talk about Parashat Shemot. One thing that stays with me, I remember going to Eretz Yisrael many years after being here in Gibraltar. I think I was here maybe 10 or 15 years. And I went back to Eretz Yisrael when I was teaching. There was very little opportunity to go whenever I wanted. It was always only when school is off, etc. It wasn't easy. One of the things I feel ex-yeshiva boys should always do is go back to yeshiva, even for a yeshiva week. It's a very important thing. Very, very important thing. Because yeshiva is a makom kodesh. It's a very, very holy place. People are centers of excellence for spiritual growth. And it's an enormous privilege to be even associated with a place like that. But unfortunately, reality bites, and we go out into the world, and we have to do what we have to do. And I remember somebody telling a certain Rav, when he asked him how life is, the rabbi asked a student, how is it? And he said, you should know, when I was in yeshiva, I was surrounded by holiness, but I didn't realize what I had. And now, unfortunately, I'm in the city, and I'm surrounded by language that I shouldn't be associated with, and I'm surrounded by ideals and thoughts that are not mine, and I feel myself sinking, and I feel myself uncomfortable. I'm just uncomfortable in my surroundings, and the Rebbe says, I give you a bracha, you should always stay this uncomfortable. Always stay this uncomfortable. Right. Right? I remember going back to yeshiva, and I remember feeling so blessed to go back. I remember opening a Gemara, sitting in the Bet Midrash, and pretending that I was back where I was with no worries and no mortgage, and right? And it was beautiful. And it was Parashat Shemot. And I remember my Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Moshe Lewis, Zichrono Livracha, told me, he wasn't around, and I remember I walked from the yeshiva to an apartment. I think he was going to pay a shiva visit. I don't remember exactly, but I remember the Dvar Torah he told me, which is astonishing because I normally don't remember anything. Right? I remember it was Parashat Shemot, and he told me a vote from the Chafetz Chaim. And he said, when Moshe Rabbeinu gets approached by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it was the burning bush, and we know Moshe Rabbeinu was paid tribute to by the Torah, that he took a little extra step out of his way, whether it was 3 steps or whether he just craned his neck to look. He saw an extraordinary sight, and he investigated, and he is applauded for that. And we're going to delve into this maybe perhaps a little bit deeper. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh is here. So good to see you. Pop your head in and say hello to YouTube. We want to make you famous. Chazak. Honestly, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Josh.
I invite all of you to subscribe and comment after the channel.
I'll pay you afterwards, yeah? Thanks so much. Okay? So, I remember my Rosh Yeshiva told me, Moshe Rabbeinu gets told by Hashem, come, right? Al tikrav halom shal na'alecha me'al raglecha ki hamakom asher ta'omed alav admat kodesh hu, a pasuk I'm probably sure all of you know so well. But the Chafetz Chaim says something beautiful. Moshe Rabbeinu is told to take his shoes off his feet. Why? Because the place where he is standing right now is Admat Kodesh, and of course we know where that place was going to be later on, etc. But this was Moshe's revelation, and we know that the conversation that then ensued. But says the Chafetz Chaim, this is a message for you and for me. So many times people think, New Year's resolutions, right? Next year I'll lose weight, or I'll start financially planning properly, I'll start saving when the market's sad. Look, AI bubble, it's going to happen, right? Look what Michael Burry just did. Everyone's got that thing. What does Hashem say to the Jewish people? Hamakom asher ata omed alav, the place where you find yourself right here, right now, warts and all, admat kodeshu, it's your holy moment. This is your moment to respond. The Chafetz Chaim says, take what Hashem said to Moshe and imply it to your life. It's implied that when a person finds himself, wherever we find ourselves, Hashem is the master of this universe. And He's got you, and He's got me, and He's conducting this wonderful orchestra called Olam Hazeh. And it seems so difficult at times, and the challenges are unsurmountable at times. But where you find yourself is exactly where Hashem wants you. Quite frankly, I was supposed to be miles away this week. It didn't happen. It didn't happen for crazy reasons. Oh, the computer systems glitched, your application didn't work, and that ticket didn't go. Thank you very much. And we'll talk about that a little later on as well. Don't blame people, don't blame things. I remember hearing a point once, Moshe Rabbeinu, even in this same episode, he demurs, right? Hashem says to him, go down to Egypt. He says, Lo ish devarim anochi. I'm not an orator. I stumble with my words. It's not going to happen. And Hashem eventually gets very angry. Vayichar af Hashem b'Moshe. Right? Vayichar af Hashem b'Moshe. Whenever it says charon af in the pasuk, what's the rule? Whenever there's a charon af, any daf yomi learners over here, about 10 days ago we learned that anytime the word charon af, Rashi mentions this also, anytime it says burning wrath in the pasuk, nemar boroshem. There is a punishment associated with it right there and then. Question is on this pasuk, where is it? Vayichar af Hashem b'Moshe. Right? Hashem gets angry with Moshe. Why is Hashem getting so angry? Moshe is only being humble. Doesn't want to take the job, fair enough. Why is he being... By the way, do you know how long the conversation was between Hashem and Moshe at the burning bush? The Medrash tells us. How long was it?
Well, he objected 4 times. How long did that take?
Exactly, right? You should think 15 minutes. 7 days. The Midrash tells us Moshe was arguing back and forth with Hashem. And Hashem was upset at this. Okay, sometimes you can be humble, sometimes you can say no, right? When they come and ask you to be chazan, oh, you've got such a nice voice, please. You could say no once. You could say no twice. What does the halakha say? Third time lucky, right? You take it. You have to do it, exactly, right? But maybe also with forgiveness, etc. Moshe was vayichar af Hashem b'Moshe. Hashem was angry with Moshe. And what did Moshe say? Shalach na biyad tishlach. Send with somebody else. Don't send with me. Send with the person you normally send. Right? And then Hashem's rage is angered. And I saw an answer. Like, up until this point, Hashem's anger didn't rage, but then it did. So I saw a very cute story that a board of directors once dismissed a CEO of a major corporation. Yeah, poor results, lower level mismanagement, whatever it may be, right? I don't know, doing a press conference after a Man United game and then calling out the board. I don't know, whatever it may have been, but somebody got dismissed, right? But we've got to keep it current and topical otherwise, right? I don't know, right? And they hired a new CEO, a younger guy, right? And his outgoing boss, he had a lot of respect for actually. And he said to him, look, do me a favor. I know you're leaving now and I'm new in this post. But if you could leave me with some wisdom, like I'm going to be running this big corporation, the CEO title is a very nice one, for as long as the results are good. I'm sure times are going to get tricky. Can you give me any advice? So the CEO, the outgoing CEO said to him, listen, I'll think about it and I'll come back to you, okay? Later that afternoon, as he was clearing his stuff out of his office, he was coming out and he had 2 envelopes in his pocket and he said to him, listen, he said, there's these 2 envelopes, one is marked envelope number 1, one's called marked envelope number 2. He said, when you're struggling with your first crisis, go into a room by yourself and open this first envelope. Keep them safe, right? Right? Open the first envelope, okay? If things don't calm down and the advice there doesn't work, then I guess a few days later, open the second envelope. And you should know the CEO started, all fresh, new ideas, new team talks, everything was good, there was great buzz in the office for a few weeks, right? And then the first crisis hit, I don't know, profit warnings, whatever it was, it happened, and morale started to slump, and he made one mistake, and an internal email went round, and blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, he feels the heat on him, he closes his office, he goes in, and he opens the envelope. Opens envelope number 1, and in envelope number 1, there's just 3 words in the letter. You know what it said? It said, blame your predecessor. Right? Blame your predecessor. Right? Take to the dispatch box and say, if it wasn't for this country that you left us in, you ran it for so many years, we're paying off your debts and your mismanagement. And he does that. Right? So he does. He goes back in press conference, the mess that my predecessor left me and it wasn't so easy. Right? Followed the advice. It wasn't super productive. A few weeks later, things are getting worse. He's under the heat, massively under the cosh. Goes into the office, and he opens the second envelope. There was also only 3 words in the second letter. You know what it said? Prepare 2 envelopes. Right? In fact, the Bechor Shor says on this pasuk over here, it's a bit like the point that we were saying, right? Moshe Rabbeinu's hesitations to go, when there are reasons about himself, fair enough. Hashem gives him a rebuttal, no, you have to go. When Moshe says, no, it's Aaron's job, it says, when you start to look at reasons around you for other people and this and that, Hashem gets upset. What does this mean? This means where Hashem puts us in our lives, there's no better person to deal with our package than us. Whatever Hashem has given to us, we are being asked to perform something, and I want to take this a stage deeper. Wherever we find ourselves, Admat Kodeshu, we have to act on it. Okay? But I saw something even deeper from Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. It's going to be a little bit more challenging to say, but I'd like to push it and say it. Okay? There's a pasuk in Divrei Hayamim. Right? We're talking about Moshe. We see Moshe's growth beginning in this parasha, in this book in particular. There's a pasuk in Divrei Hayamim which writes as follows, and his wife Yehudiah gave birth to Yered Avi Gedor, okay, Chaver Avi Socho, and Yekusiel Avi Zanoach. You know who I'm talking about? Very good. I'm in an esteemed company. Kol hakavod. They're all names for Moshe. Okay? These are the sons of Batya, the daughter of Pharaoh. Good question. Why the pasuk in Divrei Hayamim calls them the son of, yeah, exactly. So there's a Gemara in Megillah that says these sons are actually different names referring to Moshe, like Mo told us so expertly just now. But the Gemara asks the question that's on our lips as well. Batya, who was also Yehudiah, right? She gave birth to Moshe, she didn't. She drew him out of the water. We know that. That's our psukim as well. She raised him. She didn't give birth to him. But from here, the Gemara works out, and the Gemara says that if a person raises an orphan in their home, they're considered as if they actually gave birth to that child. So let's try and understand these names that were given to Moshe. And we know that in the Hebrew language, not that I want to go into this a lot, but I've given other shiurim on this, and it's fascinating, but Lashon HaKodesh is actual. Right? If you want to hear something super Kabbalistic and very interesting, they say when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, you could see it was raining letters. When they brought each animal to Moshe, right? And Moshe gave it its name. What does it mean? Hu Shemot, says the pasuk. I'm sorry, Adam, thank you very much. Right? When Adam saw it, Vayikra Shemot, it says Hu Shemot, that's what it was. In other words, if you could find an actualizing machine and you could chuck in a pei, a resh, and a hey, right? And a para would come out. That's what would come out of this would be this mooing thing that produces milk sometimes, right? In the English language, the fact that this is called a pen and this is called a table, they're just words associated with what, but it could just as easily be the other way around. The reason, or one of the best ways to prove this, by the way, is when you see a Hebrew word which has a shoresh but has a double meaning. Correct? So for example, the liver, right? The word for liver in Hebrew is kaved. Kaved also means heavy. It's the heaviest internal organ is the liver. Teeth, shinayim, right? Very much associated with the word shinayim. The only thing you get a second set of in your lifetime is teeth. We could keep going. Should we do it? Oznayim are your ears. Moznayim is scales. Even today's medicine can't tell us why that the middle ear is the balance of the body. People who have like ear infections, they get wobbly and whatever. The moznayim are the oznayim. And we can see this again and again and again and again. Okay? So let's just focus on the names that Moshe has given over here. And the Mepharshim explain that Moshe was given different names. First of all, he was called Yared. Yared means Yored, to bring down. Moshe Rabbeinu brought down Torah to this world. He was the vehicle with which Torah was brought down. He was also called Chaver. Chaver can mean Talmid Chacham, it can mean a warm friend. But Lechaber, of course, is a person who is a warm friend. Lechaber is always close. Moshe Rabbeinu connected the Bnei Israel through this incredible vehicle which we have today, which we can connect with Hashem, with the Torah. He's called Avi Socho. He's the father of all of those who speak, the father of the prophets. Each of the names portray a different aspect of who Moshe Rabbeinu really was. I wrote something down quite fantastic. Another great way of showing you how language is actualizing is the letter Aleph. If we write out the letter Aleph, like write it out, Aleph Lamed Peh, right, is how it would be pronounced, okay? Aleph Lamed Peh. If you look at the numerical value of Aleph, Lamed and Peh, Aleph is 1, Lamed is 30, right? Peh is 80. 80 plus 30 plus 1 1, 1, 1. It's the Aleph is one all the way through. Its essence is one, right? And you can look at it in its hidden side and its open side. You can see it again and again, right? Just having said this, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz asks a brilliant question. Yet Moshe's given his name in this week's parasha. Why? Ki min hamayim mishitihu. Correct? He was Moshe. He was brought in from the water, right? Of all of the things ascribing the brilliance and the attributes of Moshe Rabbeinu, one of the last things I would say is he's the guy who got nicked out the water.
It's the only thing that happened at that point.
It may be true.
But water is like life is
It's
Torah,
true.
so maybe
But look, he's clearly given other names in Tanakh. Why don't we know him as Chaver, as Yared? Why don't we know him as the one who brought Torah to the world? Why? Surely we could. I always say a joke about me, right? Lots of people don't know my real name, right? I was once in Gates, being called up to the Torah. No, it's Simchas Torah. I was given something. Rabbi Roberts, please come. No, my name's not Noach, right? Noichi, they thought it was Noach. It's Chanoch, right? And my father, who's a master educator, I saw it wasn't an easy life. The only thing I said I wouldn't be when I was a teenager would be a teacher. The only thing I said. How I got there is a different story, right? What did my parents call me? Chanoch. Chanoch means to educate, right? Okay? She's called Moshe. He calls him Moshe. Why? So Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says a very, very deep point. And I have some notes on it over here, and I hope I'm able to portray it. I certainly can't explain it as fullness. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz is very, very deep. Always says something deep. But he says like this. He explains that our actions have a profound impact on our surroundings. And when we do something for someone else, it can actually affect and change the person that we're doing it to as well. To that point, even to the point that what we do, our actions can be incorporated in them as well. And Batya bat Pharaoh, certainly at her earliest stage, she did an incredible kindness. She actually risked her life to save the life of Moshe. She did. Okay? We know this. Not only that after saving him, she raised him, she looked after him in the palace, and what it did, says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, is it infused Moshe with the very essence of this nature of caring. I remember hearing a story years ago. It's not exactly the same point, but it's something similar. Somebody went to a great gadol and said that their little 3-year-old daughter is an absolute terror. They can't control her. There's older siblings in the house, but she just is the most privileged thing out there, and she won't do anything. And we want to educate our child well. What should we do? So you know what the gadol said? Said on Shabbat, when it's time to serve dessert, make that her chief job. She should serve dessert. And it made no sense to the family. It made no sense at all. But the gadol explained that when a child learns to give, when the hands learn to give, and lots of people like dessert, right? And what happens when the guest gets the dessert? Oh, thank you, Irena, thank you so much. It's a bunch of smiles and a bunch of thank yous. Isn't it amazing? That woman grew up to be one of the biggest Balei Chesed out there. There are people like that. But actions have a profound impact. And Moshe Rabbeinu, whose whole life becomes a life of giving, a whole life of giving, the Torah attributes it to Batya bat Pharaoh, who drew him out of the water, who risked her life, who gave. And she used Moshe, so to speak, as the vehicle of giving it. And even though Moshe went on to do extraordinary things, we know this, says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, the dizzying heights that he reached came because ultimately he was given the tools to do so, and it became about because somebody originally cared so deeply about him. And that's why he cared so deeply about the plight of Bnei Israel. Things that we do and we say in this world have such a profound impact on the world. And I'd like to just expand this idea just a little bit with 2 phenomenal stories. I could say it one of 2 different ways. But says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, it's fascinating. He wasn't called by the name describing him receiving the Torah, going up to Shamayim, being the father of the prophets. He wasn't called again by levels of never again heights of prophecy. No. He was called Moshe because min hamayim meshitu. I find that so inspiring. Not just the simple kindnesses is what keeps the world going, where we find ourselves opportunities to give and opportunities to do. Maybe the greatest testimony to Moshe was the testimony of what Batya did for him. I find that fascinating. I also find it phenomenal that Chaim Shmulevitz brings this point out. But one clear example of this is when it comes to giving, when it comes to tzedakah. You can see it also on another pasuk when Moshe Rabbeinu eventually says to Moshe, okay, when Moshe says to Hashem, okay, I'll go, but who should I say to the Bnei Israel sent me? So we know Hashem's name. It's not really a name that we can really repeat. Aleph Hey Yud Hey Ekieh, maybe, right? Tell them, Kotomai Bnei Israel Ekieh Shelachani Alechem, the one that always is and will be. That's who sent me. Okay, so the Ramban writes. Mahu, what's the pshat in these words? Ekieh, Asher, Ekieh, I will be as I will be. What does that mean? So he says something phenomenal. And the Ramban takes this a little bit deep, but we'll say it very simply. Kashem she'ata hoveh imi, in the same way as you attribute yourself to me, kach ani hoveh imcha, that's how I'll behave with you. Im potchim et yedehem ve'osim tzedakah, if you are extremely generous and benevolent, afani eftach et yadi, I promise you I'll do the same. Shenema yiftach Hashem lecha et tzotzaro hatov, the Ramban quotes this pasuk, and we see this. We see this many times. I'm going to tell you two stories. I'll tell you one, because I have to start with one, and only then can I get to the second one, because that's how numbers work.
Maybe even three.
Maybe even three. We'll see, Josh, okay? This story I find fascinating. Came with a fellow called Michael in Eretz Israel. He went for his routine checkup, and unfortunately, the doctor noticed something that he wasn't so happy with the blood result, and he sent him for further checks. And he came back with a very severe diagnosis. Okay, I don't actually know what the diagnosis is. I wasn't told, not written in this sefer that I have in front of me, but the diagnosis was severe, and he was advised immediately to travel to England, because apparently there was an expert doctor there, and he was the leading physician on this particular disease, whatever it was. There was one problem, as I'm sure you can guess: the travel and the treatment alone, without the travel, was $60,000. $60,000, and this poor guy from Bnei Brak or wherever it was didn't have a penny to his name, and he thought to himself, compounded with the issue of the bad news, was this matter of now he has to go fundraise his own trip. And so he went around his close family, his associates. It must be such a difficult thing to do, to have to go cap in hand and say, please, I'm desperate. And soul destroying as that already is, on top of it, he knew he had this terrible diagnosis. It didn't bode well for him. And after much humiliation, and he managed to cover the cost of a plane ticket. That's it. He got the plane ticket. And he thought to himself, like, where does Me'ayin Yavo Ezri, where's it going to come from? How am I going to, this poor guy has nothing. So he went to a Keren Tzedakah, he went to a certain gemach that was known for helping out people who needed loans, interest-free loans, etc. So he went, and they said to him, the maximum we can give you on our books at the moment, etc., is $5,000, right? And he said, well, $5,000 is a really nice amount to be given, as an interest-free loan, and no repay date loan. Thank you so much. He says, but frankly, in my predicament, that doesn't help me now. I'm not trying to be rude, he said to the Tzedakah people, but I have pressing, urgent needs, and I need an answer. I need a response. I mean, if you can think of anything, please, I'm desperate. And they saw the desperation, and they said, we'll get back to you. Okay? He said, look, the whole cost of living, everything is really, really difficult. He said, but I made some phone calls. He came back to me, and said, I made some phone calls. He said, there's one fellow who lives in Tel Aviv, his name is Chaim, and he's not happy to give details over the phone, credit card, or whatever it may be, but if you go and see him, he said he'll likely help you. No, I don't know what that means, whether it's $1,000 or $5,000, I have no idea. He said, but please go. So, he did. He said, I've got nothing to lose. He said a small prayer to Hashem, and off he went. Okay? He goes to this very affluent looking neighborhood. He goes into this very impressive looking home. The address sends him to wherever it may be. He knocks on the door, and this guy comes to the door, and he sets him down, gives him a drink. These two Jewish strangers meet. This poor fellow Michael, who's got this horrible diagnosis, and this kind-hearted fellow called Chaim. They get chatting, and he asks him about the nature of his illness, etc. And he says to him, so what is it exactly that you need? And he pulls out the documentation. He says, with this in my blood, blah, blah, blah. I need this treatment. And he said, so how much is the treatment? And the fellow gulped hard, and he looked at him, and he said to the stranger, I need $60,000. I have $5,000 towards the treatment, and I've raised the money for a ticket. And Chaim looked at him, total stranger. And he said to him, there's a really interesting conversation going on inside of me. He said, I'm not that liquid. I don't have $60,000 just sitting around in cash. He said, but something compels me to sell one of my assets and give you the full amount. Can you imagine? And this fellow is sitting there stunned. And he said, I don't know, something is telling me to do this. And I normally give a few thousand, whatever. He said, I'm going to give you 60,000. He goes into his office, he makes a few phone calls, I think he sells a piece of art. And he says, it's okay, I'll give you a check now, don't put it in the bank until next week. But Yeba said, gives him a warm hug, says to him, I wish you refuah shlema b'mirabi, amen, b'ezrat Hashem, you should be well, you should be healthy, everything should be good. And he sends him out. And this guy walks out in an absolute daze. He just cannot believe what's happened to him. A total stranger's just given him a huge amount of money. And not only that, he had to sell something to give that money. That's like next level tzedakah. Like, you don't have to do that. Anyhow, he makes up his mind. This was in the month of Kislev, by the way. He makes up his mind that before he flies to England, he arranges the trip and whatever. It's a week before Hanukkah. He thinks to himself, I have to do something. I have to. So he goes into a Judaica store a day or two before he flies, and he buys a beautiful menorah from his own money. I don't know from which money, right? And he puts a beautiful plaque and an inscription on the bottom, and it says, to my dearest friend Chaim, I'll never be able to thank you, etc. Right? I'll never be able to thank you enough. And he gives clear instructions to the Judaica store, and he says to them, listen, here's the address, I'll pay for the delivery, I want it delivered the day before Hanukkah. When the plaque is ready and everything, mounted, I want it. They said, yeah, absolutely, and that's what they do. Okay? He flies off to England. About a week later is when the thing gets delivered. And can you imagine, a delivery boy from, I don't know, Hatzorfim in Israel, right? Goes and gets an address from some affluent neighborhood in Tel Aviv. It's evening time, right? 6 p.m., 7 p.m., someone's got to be home. They go, they knock on the door. Nothing. No one's there. Now they're holding an expensive item, leave it, right? Amazon deliveries get nicked from doorsteps, right? Yeah? This is, what's he going to do? So this fella can't be bothered to have to go all the way back to the shop and try again and deliver it the next day. It's just like the bane of his life. He doesn't need problems like that. So he gets a bit more resourceful, right? He said, somebody's got to be home, 6 p.m., 7 p.m., it's got to happen, right? So he bangs on the door a little harder, rings on the doorbell 1 or 2 more times, with respect. And he swears to himself he can hear some muffled cries from inside. After banging a few more times, he hears some muffled cries from inside. And then he realizes maybe somebody's in there and they're in trouble. So he races to a neighbor, bangs on the neighbor's door, and he says, I need help. The two of them break into this house. They smash the door down. This Chaim is on the floor at the bottom of a stairwell. He had collapsed with a massive heart attack. The neighbor was an EMT. The neighbor was a Hatzalah guy. They do CPR on him straight away, right? I don't know if there was a defibrillator on the wall. I don't know. But they call for help. When Hatzalah arrives, when the ambulances arrive, they carry on CPR. They take this guy within inches of his life to the hospital. They call the family. And they say, quick, your dad's in hospital, da-da-da-da. And this messenger boy realizes, and he thinks to himself, if I don't knock on this door at this time, it's clear this fellow doesn't survive. What did we say before about Admat? You know, says the Chafetz Chaim, where you find yourself, Admat Kodeshu, this is your time. It might not look rosy, it might not look like another day in paradise, but where you find yourself, where your footsteps take you, that's where you need to be. Only you can do it. He stays with him. He stays with him. Right? He stays with him in the hospital. He makes sure he gets his treatment. The kids come. The fellow won't leave. The fellow doesn't leave. He stays by his bedside the whole time. And he thinks to himself, isn't it crazy? But more importantly, when Chaim recovers and he goes home and he has stents put in his heart and Baruch Hashem, he's fine and everything works well. He says to himself, now I understand why Hashem drove me to sell an asset to give you all the money. He said, now I know. You were so taken by what I did for you that you dug into your own piggy bank and gave me a little something, and literally that something saved my life. How do we know where we are and what we're being asked to do and why we're being asked to do it? But says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, the most profound thing we can say about Moshe is the chesed that was done for him. What does that tell us about our lives? Like Moshe Rabbeinu, we can care for others. Like Moshe Rabbeinu, we must care for others. Why is it so difficult to get along with certain people? Because Hashem's giving us an opportunity. Let me tell you one final story. I love this story. I love it. This story came to me, again, quite by accident. I was looking around for something else and I stumbled across this story. Unbelievable. It was written by a manager of a post office in Israel. Right? Now I know we've had a recent post office scandal in England, right? Yeah? But listen to this post office scandal that happened in Eretz Yisrael. One of the services that are associated with the post office in Israel is wiring money. You can come into Israel with a certain amount of cash, you deposit it there, and they can send it almost anywhere in the world with Western Union, etc. Okay? And this manager writes and he says, one day I'm in my crummy little branch dealing with some angry customers, and a very busy person walked in. You know, sometimes they come in, they're a bit boisterous, they're a bit loud. This fellow, couldn't wait to get to the front of the line, and when he got to the front of the line, he goes, dachuf, $5,000 le Mexico. And he explains, he goes on to say that his father-in-law is in Mexico. We're doing big asakim, big business, of course, big business, right? And I need to send $5,000 to Mexico. And the clerk says, absolutely, here, details, etc. Where's it going to, right? And when all the details get put in, the fellow tries to deposit the $5,000. He says, certainly, just let me put it through. It's a complex computer system that we've got to put it through. And he said, and sometimes it glitches, so you have to bear with me, right? It's not only British Airways that glitch, right? There's others as well, right? They tried to get this Western Union wire done, and for some reason it wouldn't work. And the guy is growing impatient. And he says, dachuf, I need to... And the manager steps in. The clerk is working as best she can. And the guy said, Savlanut, b'vakasha. Nachnu menasim, we're working here, we're trying. But human beings have limitations, especially when it comes to IT, right? Sometimes people have a knack with IT. I have a knack that it doesn't work for me, right? Me and IT, we're just not friends, right? I ask it to do stuff, and my kid comes along and zip, done, right? Absolutely. It's not working, right? The computer is not playing game. Give me time. I'm sorry, we're trying. And all of a sudden, it starts to get heated. They try again 2 times, 3 times. Now, can you imagine what's happening now? Now the line's growing behind this fellow. People are tutting and saying, hello, you've had your turn, you've had your chance, it's not working. Can I please, right? And at one point, the manager steps in and says, look, we'll shut this thing, right? What's the one answer to all IT problems? Switch it off and switch it on again, right? We all know that, right? So they switch it off, switch it on again. Meantime, we're going to serve somebody else. They do it. The guy has to stand to the side, serve someone else. He's stewing. He's not having it, right? And then they try again. He steps in after 2, 3 people were, right? And again, it doesn't work. And now it's almost closing time. Yeah. And the manager says, listen, I'm making an executive call over here. We'll try one more time for you, sir. But if it doesn't work, I'm afraid that's it. We'll try again tomorrow. He says, no, tomorrow's not going to work. Anyhow, cut a long story short, they try one more time. It doesn't work. They start serving other people. He gets on his phone and he starts lacing insults like you can't imagine. This is the worst branch ever. I don't understand how you're the manager of this place. Yeah, I know how you're the manager, but probably somebody somewhere, protexia, got you this job, but I'm telling you now, yeshli protexia, and the next, I'm never stepping foot in this place again. It's the most disgraceful place. And he gets on a phone and he calls Mexico, and he says, these bunch of idiots over here can't punch buttons in a computer, can't get you the money. Now you're stuck. You do no point going to the Western Union because it's not going to be there for you, because this clown over here, this monkey in a suit, can't even wire some money. An idiot can do it. My teenager could do it. I don't know what's coming to this country. This is why Israel stinks. It's terrible. And the insults go on and on. And as they say in Ivrit, lost down. This was next level insults. And you should know the manager is sitting there and they're cutting deeper and deeper. Not only that, the manager's being insulted in front of his whole staff, everyone in the store. Right, everyone waiting, and it's eventually it's closing time, and he, with one last parting shot, he basically comes and says, "I'm never stepping foot in this place again." Actually, I take that back. The only time I'm stepping foot in this place is to come back here to get you fired, because I can do it. You'll never work again in the postal service again, you absolute idiot. And you know what? And then he storms off. And this guy was anyways having a tough day, and I don't think his life was super rosy anyways. And you know what? Those insults pushed him over the edge, and he just thought to himself, I'm ready to break down on the spot. I'm not going to do it now in front of everyone else. And he thought to himself, like, what am I supposed to do in my embarrassment? What do I do with this broken heart right here? And he remembered whenever you get insulted, if you don't respond, or on the contrary, you respond with kindness, it's one of the biggest opportunities you could ever seize for yourself. Hane'elavim ve'einan olvim. You can bless anybody, right? I've told you many stories about this. Remember? He said, you know what? He said, I'm going to take, and he said out loud in front of the staff, he said, I forgive this man with my whole heart. He said with his voice cracking up. And he said, I forgive this man and I'm dedicating it. And he turns to one of the store clerks who works there with him for 12, 13 years. She's been childless. And they've been saying Sefer Tehillim for her and davening for her. They all know her name. And he says, I'm dedicating the forgiveness to, and he says this woman's name, so that she should be blessed with Zera Shel Kayama. Amen Ken Yehi Ratzon. And everyone was pretty impressed. And he took his broken heart and his bruised ego, and he dusted himself down, and he locked up, and everyone left, and everyone went home. Can you imagine his delight when he opened the next morning? The first customer that walks in was the guy from yesterday. That's what he thought. Oh, right? It was the guy from yesterday. And he walks in and he says, he has a smile on his face. He shakes the guy's hand. He says, is it okay if I give you a hug? This is Israel. Can I give you a hug? What does that mean? You're marrying into my family? Like, come on, right? Chibuk ifshar? What's going on? He said, I'll do anything in the world if you forgive me. I'll do anything if you could forgive me. He said, let me explain. He said, my father-in-law was sitting in an office in Mexico waiting for me to call him to tell him to go to Western Union to get this money because we're doing some business there. Right? He said, he keeps messaging me, when can I go? And I said, I'm sorry, we're having problems. Every 20 minutes, I'll tell him. And the day is winding down, and we realize we're not going to be able to pay the accountant or the lawyer, whatever it may be, and therefore we're not going to get the documents incorporated. Well, you know how it works, right? And as the delay goes on, I get more antsy and I get more nervous. And the day was spent with my father-in-law sitting in a room, waiting for something to happen. And as the afternoon went on, there was a massive earthquake, 7.1 on the Richter scale in Brazil. Buildings collapsed. Mexico. Did I say Brazil? Same thing. Maduro's not there anymore, right?
No, the Mexico had.
Yeah, Mexico. Correct. It was in Mexico, I'm sorry. Right? There was a huge earthquake in Mexico, 7.1 on the Richter scale. The building where he was supposed to go, Western Union, the entire building collapsed. He said, the mistake wasn't yours. This was Hashem delaying everything so that my father-in-law should live. And he said, and I'm standing here acting like an absolute jerk, like an idiot, cursing you. He said, I am embarrassed to my core. What happened here was Hashem. It wasn't you. It was Hashem saving my father-in-law. And I acted like this. How do you forgive me? What do I have to do? Tzadikata. You did nothing wrong. And one of the store clerks piped up and said, it's okay. He already forgave you. And he says, how do you know? And they said the whole story. And he said, now I feel doubly bad. Here I am acting like a rasha. Somebody who curses and ate a rasha. And you're tzaddik shebetzaddikim. tzaddikim. He said, I give you a bracha, please. I give you. He says, he was crying. He started to cry. He said, you're a tzaddik, what you do. I hope I can do teshuvah and I can become a person like you. He said, but you've taught me a lesson for the rest of my life. A beautiful, beautiful ending to this story is that 9.5 months later, this woman gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Right? We don't know why we are where we are, and we don't know why Hashem puts us in the situations that we do. But one thing we see so clearly, and we could even see this from the Matzav in Mitzrayim, the Jewish people, we get put through very dark times, but Hashem, as He's doing it, is giving us the opportunity to fulfill our mission in this world. That's our job. And amid all of the confusion and the challenges, never forget the Adama She'ata Omed Alav, the place where you find yourself right here, right now. Admat Kodeshu, it's your golden opportunity. And you have to take it. And regardless of how others treat you, if we can treat others, we can influence the world. Hopefully with only goodness and only bracha to us all. Bezrat Hashem. Thank you so much.